I'm now excited to be joined by a very special guest. It is Matt Hayes. Matt, let's start with the elephant in the room.
Right.
You are unfortunately leaving us. TBD on the announcements of where exactly you'll be. Let's just say you'll be writing nationally. But tell us about basically why you are leaving me as a teammate and why I'm really upset right now.
I don't know why I'm leaving you as a teammate, actually. I should just drag you along with me, right?
Package deal, man. Like twins coming out of high school, going into college. Let's do it.
Right. I'm just really excited about where I'm headed. We'll know shortly. We'll have a little announcement shortly, but really excited about where I'm headed, what we're doing, and what the future holds. Yeah. Pumped,
I,
actually.
I say it all the time, but like in all seriousness, in my 9 years of being with this company, like for those who don't know, Matt is one of the best teammates I've had, and we've had countless times where C. Wright has reached out to us about breaking news or something like that, and we've both are in a position where we have to react, and we usually react differently enough, even if we don't communicate directly, which is kind of a crazy thing that usually doesn't happen like that. We don't really do a whole lot of stepping on toes, which is what I've always liked about you, and you always bring such a unique perspective, which I love. But just because you got a new gig doesn't mean I'm going to stop bothering you like every other month to be able to come on the show. You know that, right?
Of course, I'd be happy to, man. You know that.
Yeah. Well, Matt's still going to be a fixture, Jacksonville radio as well. That gig, as of right, unless you want to break some news there and tell us that you're quitting your day job to be
You
able
do the
to
entire radio day from 9 to 5.
just do it.
I'm
Yeah.
kidding, man. No, still doing radio 2 to 4, 1010XL in Jacksonville.
Love it. And they do great work over there as well. So for those that want to hear Matt's voice all the time, that's the place to be able to catch him. Okay, let's talk some coordinators, Matt, because we just got, the top 25 week is over, which for both of us that do this, it is a lot to be able to come up with these rankings, all the different things that we come up with for not just teams, but of course, getting into you ranked coaches, you ranked coordinators. But I think the coordinator element is a little bit more interesting and not something that we maybe talked about quite as much. Top 25 OCs, top 25 DCs in college football. If you want to see the full list, SaturdayDownSouth.com. Spoiler alert, long-time Iowa defensive coordinator Phil Parker, he is number one. He edged out Glenn Schumann for that number one spot. How close was Schumann to being number one on that list? Because I think if you were just making the argument, I want to start a team and pick any coordinator in college football to be my DC, I think Schumann would probably be number one.
I think if you're just talking just strictly X's and O's, I think I might take Phil Parker. Honestly, I mean, I'm not. Look, I don't want to downgrade what Glenn Schumann's done or what that entire staff has done over the last 4, 5, 6 years on defense, and he's been a part of that. I just think you look at what the personnel that Iowa has compared to the personnel that Georgia has, and the way Iowa plays defense, and the way they're so fundamental, and they're so smart. They take great angles. They don't get beat. It's impressive the way they play the game, and then you add in on top of that the fact that they were playing offensive football last year with a fullback at quarterback who completed 40-some% of his passes, and the ball couldn't go down the field. I mean, how do you not just stand there in awe of what Iowa did? I mean, they were averaging like two point something yards per play last year on offense. That's ridiculous. And they still were in top 5 defense. They still were the reason Iowa won 10 games. I'm going to say this again. They had a fullback paying quarterback, and they won 10 games in the Big Ten. I don't know what else you got to say after that. Okay, there he is, number one with a bullet.
That's fair, and it's an accomplishment that Glenn Schumann could be at Georgia for 200 years and never probably have an offense that's quite like that, where his defense has to be on the field that much. I think what Georgia fans are wondering is not whether or not Glenn Schumann's going to be at Georgia as long as Phil Parker is at Iowa. That just seems unrealistic for someone that's 34 and is all over everybody's radar to be able to get one of these head coaching jobs. But the note that you had about Schumann, it feels like he's going to be holding out for the perfect opportunity to become a head coach, just like Kirby did, staying at Alabama until Georgia came along, just like Lanning did, staying at Georgia until Oregon came along. What could that perfect job be for Schumann?
Oh gosh, I mean, I think it's going to have to be a big job. I mean, could it be something like Florida? Of course it could. I mean, there are any number of jobs out there. I mean, we say like maybe South Carolina I don't know where Shane is right now. Shane needs to win some games. There's no doubt about that. It's just like Billy Napier does. Would he go to South Carolina? I don't know. I don't know. Billy Napier turned down South Carolina. He didn't want that job. So there are reasons you go for some and not the others. But I expect he will be a high commodity. I expect he will take a big job at some point in the relative near future, maybe even after this season, after Georgia wins it all again, and the defense once again plays lights out. I would. He's going to be high commodity, much like Dan Lanning was when Dan went to Oregon.
Can I throw a few at you? We got to play some sort of hypothetical game. That's what we always do. Okay, so you mentioned Florida. I'll take that off the list. North Carolina, is that good enough for Glenn Schumann?
I like what North Carolina has. I also think North Carolina will eventually be in the SEC. So I think if you're looking at it down the road, it's a really good job. I don't know how quickly Mac's going to leave. Mac may have a little resurgence. They may win 10 games. He's not going anywhere. They win 10 games. They got a chance to be in the playoff. The playoff now, Connor, has expanded everything. It's not only expanded the ability for teams to get in and compete for the national championship. It's expanded the lives of coaches, too, of some coaches. Now, other people will look at the other side of it and say, no, now the bar's the playoff, and if you don't get in, you're out.
Exactly.
But that's the negative way of looking at it, man. If you're a coach and you look at that thing, the positive way is there are now 12 spots for this thing. So if you can figure out how to navigate your schedule and get 10 wins out of your schedule, which a lot of guys have done of late, and then their teams have kind of filtered away over the next couple of years. But if you do that and you get to those 10 wins and you get to the playoff, you're going to get an extension. You're going to get some nice cash out of it.
And Mac would clap back if that happened. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, yeah.
Especially
I still think
Drake Mac.
Mac's not ready to go, man. There's no way. Mac is not ready to go.
Okay, how about one that's a little bit more popular, a little bit more well-documented, the coach's job security? What about Arkansas? Is that good enough for Glenn Schumann?
Ooh, I love Arkansas. I do, man. I love that town. I love the fan base there. There's a lot of money there. The facilities are fantastic. I think you can win there. It's just going to take the right guy. You and I both thought that Sam was the right guy, and he may be. Who knows? He may pull it out. But if it's not, it's not. And I think he's very grateful for what he had and the time he got and the ability and the offer he got and the chance he got. I like that place, man. I do. I think that would be tempting. If I were him, that would be very tempting for me. And I know it's difficult because it's an SEC job and it doesn't, quote unquote, have the resources of the other jobs. But I don't know if I would believe that. There's a lot of money in Arkansas, the state of Arkansas. A lot.
Yeah, people know about the chicken money. It's very much there.
Well, it's rentals. There's all kind of stuff there, man. There's a lot. Walmart. If you get the right coach and the right coach who can get everybody aligned and on board, their NIL money will skyrocket.
Okay, here's an intriguing one because not on the hot seat, but I've gone on record saying I think this is going to be his last season there. What if Mark Stoops steps down in Kentucky? If he just gets kind of fed up with what college athletics has become in his specific role, and there's a vacancy there, and let's just say hypothetically speaking, John Summerall, the guy that everybody and their mother is kind of projecting as the coach in waiting at Kentucky. Let's just say he's like, you know what, timing's not right. Kind of want to stick it out at Tulane. Really like what I'm doing here. Maybe if the opportunity comes along later, I would listen to that. But let's just say, in theory, that was a vacancy, and they put on the full court press to be able to get a Glenn Schumann. Would that fit make sense?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. You know what? I don't know why you've been throwing Stoopsy in there. It's odd that you're doing that because that's kind of your program.
Whoa.
Those are kind of your boys. You like those guys.
They've been. I've talked. They've been very good to me. So I think it should. I'm just saying. I think it should be. It should come with a little bit more of a If I'm coming out and suggesting this.
Okay, so here, let me just say this. I don't think Stoops is going anywhere. I don't think he's walking away. I think if he's going somewhere, it's to Iowa to take that job. Because that's just, it's his alma mater. They're going to throw all kind of money at him if Kirk Ferentz leaves. That will be intriguing for him. I don't think there's any question about that. So let's just say in your what if scenario that happens. Is that a job that Glenn Schumann would take? What's the difference between Kentucky and South Carolina? If you're strictly looking at it. And I'm not trying to demean either job. I'm not, okay? I'm just saying, what's the difference between those jobs? If you're Glenn Schumann and you're an elite assistant and the last elite assistant got the Oregon job, are you going to take Kentucky or South Carolina, or are you going to wait for something bigger to open up?
Just depends. Kentucky's paying a football coach $9 million right now. I mean,
No, I know that. I totally get all of that, but it's also about the ability to win and the ability to win enough to where if you want to get that next elite job, you can jump. And look, Kirby waited and waited and waited for his job to open, and he got it. And Dan Lanning waited and waited and waited for his job to open, and he got it. So if I'm Glenn Schumann, and I'm sure he's being told this by Kirby, it's you got to be selective, man. Don't just jump at the first thing.
The job that I don't think is going to come open, even if that week one result doesn't go their way, but you know how these conversations work. You probably know how your boy Leon Searcy is going to be talking about this as well. What about Miami? Would Miami be good enough for Glenn Schumann?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I think Miami will at some point be in one of the two big conferences too. Also, it's Miami. It's the recruiting footprint. It's everything is there and available and waiting to win. They got the mega booster John Ruiz, who allegedly is going to build a stadium for them close to campus. It's Miami's a great job. By the way, you're now starting getting a little bit more on my side about this. Well, we talked about this 4 months ago, and I said that Florida-Miami game will be the biggest game of that first weekend. And by the time it rolls around, everybody's going to be saying, oh, my God, this game is like literally like win or lose, live or die for each one of these coaches. And that's kind of what it looks like right now.
It's good, though. I think we need some of that in college football as everybody's talking about how the 12-team playoff is going to diminish these games with massive stakes and stuff. And even the Michigan-Ohio State game, it's like, all right, well, if Ryan Day loses that but still wins a national championship, it's not really do or die if you're looking at it from that standpoint. To have something like that, I'm not necessarily going to be of the belief that it is quite make or break for both of those coaches, but it's going to dominate conversation. It's going to be kind of hard for either one of them to shake that off because it is that marquee game early on the schedule for both of them, especially for Miami with how favorable it looks like it sets up this year. That game is going to be huge.
I think Mario could withstand it because it's on the road and because the schedule is so favorable. Like they could go 10-2, then win the ACC championship game and get in the playoff, and he can withstand that. The reason why I shouldn't say I don't think Billy can withstand it. I think it's going to be difficult for Billy Napier and that program to withstand it is you've got 9 months of feeling really good about where you're headed. They're talking about we're going to shock the world and people don't know how, what it's like here in this locker room. We know what it's like. We know where we're headed. And, we feel great about this team and everything is great, right? You feel really good about yourself. And you get in that game, you lose 26-9 and it looks the same and it's still an operational mess and it's going to go south quickly.
Okay, let's talk about another 34-year-old defensive coordinator. I'm really intrigued by D'Anton Lynn, and he's somebody I've talked about throughout the offseason. Lincoln Riley hires him from UCLA after he really overhauled that unit. And if you weren't paying attention and you were just kind of focused on the Chip Kelly saga, whatever that was, you might have missed out on the fact that UCLA turned into one of the best defenses in all of college football. I'm really interested in what his next step looks like because you had him at 7 on this list. And if he turns around the USC defense, the much scrutinized USC defense in a post-Alex Grinch world, he's either going to be top 4 on that list of defense coordinators next year, or he's going to be off the list altogether because he's got a head coaching gig. One and done. He doesn't really have the geographical ties though, because he grew up in Texas. He's a Penn State grad. And even though he's spent that time on the West Coast, where would you think he could end up? Could he be an SEC candidate to watch if we have 3 or 4 vacancies in the SEC?
Well, you know how crazy the coaching carousel is in college football and how hot. You can be hot one year. Let's just say 1 year USC is a top 20 defense and they're 11-1 and they get in the playoff and it's crazy and look at USC, they're back and however they lose in the playoff. Yeah, I mean, absolutely I could see him getting a major job because he's the reason. He then becomes the reason they're there. He then becomes, because all I got to do is look at Lincoln Riley's track record of defenses, both at Oklahoma and at USC. It's very clear what's going on. So then you say, yeah, this guy clearly knows how to coach, right? He clearly knows how to organize. So he becomes a high priority candidate, I would think. And yeah, I would think, of course, in the SEC, and I would think in the Big Ten as well. Yeah. Because look, let's be honest about this too, Connor. Is there are levels now of the game. And there are levels for players to play at. There are levels for coaches to coach at. If you're a coach, you want to coach at one of those two big conferences, the SEC or the Big Ten. If you're a player, you're a high school player, you want to get a scholarship offer from one of those 2 big conferences. Or if you're in the portal, you want to go to one of those two big conferences. You want to play where the mega games are, where the 8 o'clock games are, where the big ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, all those games are. Look, these guys are all about their brands now, the players. So they want to push themselves as much as anything. So, yeah, I think if you're talking about DeAnthony Lynn and what he could do, how he could take a one-year wonder, let's just call it a one-year wonder, but it's not a one-year wonder, a one-year huge turnaround at USC and what he could do with it. Could he parlay that into a big SEC job? Hell, yes, he could. Yeah. Especially in this crazy age of player and coach movement.
D'Anton Lynn and Pete Golding are probably the coordinators, at least on the defensive side of the ball, that have maybe the most pressure on them, albeit for kind of different reasons, but somewhat similar. It just feels like both will have so many eyeballs on them. And you had Pete Golding at 12 on this list. This is probably higher than what an Alabama fan might have assumed, but
Right.
what he did at Alabama was, not nothing. It just wasn't at the level that Alabama fans had become accustomed to know. And obviously, so much of his, like his stock will be determined by this year, handling all that talent at Ole Miss, very well documented. But it feels like he has the widest range of outcomes. Like if they have a bad year and it's just exasperated lane, defense letting up points left and right, doesn't all come together, he could get fired and spend a year as an analyst somewhere. Or there's a world in which he's a Broyles Award finalist and he gets his first head coaching opportunity at the group.
Next South Carolina coach.
Maybe is it kind of crazy to think about? Like, if you had to look into the crystal ball, like, how do you think this year plays out for Pete Golding?
By the way, sorry, Shane. I feel like I keep burying Shane. Shane's good dude, man. I'm not trying to bury him.
Shane's not going to like that. He's not.
No, he knows it, man. He knows he's got to win. Yeah. Can I see that happening? Of course. I guess it happen both ways. But they're better on the lines of scrimmage now than they've ever been. Even Nick Saban was talking about that at SEC Media Days. And Lane has talked about that. So, can they be in a situation where they get off the field on third down? It's all about getting off the field for them right now. They can't get off the field. That's what their biggest problem is when they're in big games. They just get worn down. Can't get off the field, get worn down, and then all of a sudden on offense, you almost have to be perfect. And, how many teams are almost perfect on offense? So that's what's difficult. I think there could be a situation where we could see that. I could also see a situation, Connor, where they go 11-1 and their offense is just crazy good, and they get to the semifinals, and they lose the semifinal 45-41, and Charlie Weiss Jr. is a head coach somewhere next year. So that wouldn't surprise me at all. He may lose both coordinators.
Let's talk about that guy because he's at number 5 on your list of offensive coordinators in college football. A lot of people don't realize that technically Charlie Weiss Jr. has primary play calling duties. Lane takes more of the CEO approach. Obviously, he still has his hands in the mix of the offense, but it is technically Charlie Weiss Jr.'s to run. That is what Lane has been saying ever since he hired him, ever since he had to replace Jeff Lebby. Tell me why you're so high on the 31-year-old offensive coordinator.
2 things. Well, actually 3 things. Organization, recruiting, and play calling. He's the most organized guy in a long time for that age, how old he is. One of the most organized coaches in all of college football, for that matter. It's funny. So this is even crazy for me to say this, but I'm going to tell you this great anecdote. I was talking to Gil Brandt about him. Okay. Gil Brandt, God rest his soul. This was probably 6 years ago when Charlie Jr. was 26, I think 25 maybe.
At FAU. Yeah.
25. Yeah. He said, I sat down and talked with him. And there's 2 guys that I've talked to that I felt got it, understood football as well as anybody or better than anybody. One of them was Bill Belichick. The other one was Charlie Weiss Jr. Right. But, and understand this too, is he's in demand by NFL teams. Like there are NFL teams that wanted him this offseason, wanted him to be their OC. So he's making a lot of money at Ole Miss. He's happy there. His family's happy there. And I think he's playing it smart. I think he's thinking, you know what? I like the college atmosphere. I like the college game. I'll see how it plays out. If I'm a college head coach, that's great. If that leads to something bigger in the NFL, that's great too. But he's on a fast track to be a head coach very soon.
Autonomy.
He's a phenomenal recruiter too, by the way, which is what all ADs and presidents will love.
Yeah, he is intriguing and probably somebody that needs to be more on my radar with those conversations and putting him as, when I come up with these list of candidates and stuff like that, he's definitely a name to keep in mind. Different point of his career, but Robert Patrick Petrino, aka Bobby, you call him Bob, which I was like, oh, we're getting.
Everybody calls him Bob. Everyone calls him Bob.
Not me. I call him Robert Patrick.
Bobby are people in the media. Everyone else calls him Bob.
It's so much better. He doesn't.
I think Sam calls him Bobby because Sam's just a good old boy. My Bobby, one of those things. Everyone else calls him Bob. That's his name, Bob.
He's a good. If there is a Bob in college football, it's got to be him, right?
Like, think about this. Everybody called Stoopsy Bob except for Spurrier. Called him Bobby. All right, Bobby. Bob. His name is Bob Stoops. It's the same thing with Bob Petrai. Whatever. We're getting way too. Now I'm starting to say Bob so much it doesn't sound like a word anymore. You know how that goes?
It's a verb, actually. People forget
right.
that. It is. He's in a fascinating situation at Arkansas because the handpicking of Taylon Green, it's coming into a situation that, for all the things that we can talk about with the reunion with Arkansas, if we're just talking about it from a football standpoint.
Right.
It's how is this guy who has been one of the best offensive minds in college football of the 21st century, probably. How is this guy still doing it in the year 2024? And what does it look like now that we're really not questioning the amount of control he's going to have? Like, it's, you can dig into how much he had at A&M, what was there for him, what was not there for him. Total autonomy is his now in Fayetteville. You had him at 3 on your list. So that means you're projecting huge things for this Arkansas offense this year, I would assume.
No, it doesn't mean that I'm projecting huge things, okay? What it means is the guy knows offense. That's what it means. And he's an unreal play caller. So you asking me, why does he keep getting jobs? He keeps getting jobs despite some issues in the past off the field, because he's a brilliant offensive mind. And the game is now a vertical game. And it's all about the quarterback, and it's all about pushing the ball vertically. And he is tremendous at that. So my guess is he'll continue to get great jobs. Let's say Arkansas goes 5-7 and that whole staff gets blown up. Bob will find another job somewhere else. Someone else will hire him. There's no doubt about it they will, because he's too good at what he does.
He would be the most fascinating, and I know I've used the word fascinating a lot, but interim coach ever, maybe, if he were to get that interim job.
All right, so let me say this real quick. If Connor Wigman doesn't get hurt, I think Jimbo's still the coach there, because that offense is going to be really, really good with him.
I agree.
So if it gets to the point where Arkansas starts off, what? I don't know. I feel so bad doing this to Sammy too, man. He's our boy. They start off like 1-4, 1-5. Yeah,
2-4 to the bye week. 2-4 to the bye week would be bad.
And they blow him out. Yeah, and then Bob would be the interim. Let's say he gets an upset here or there, maybe 2 upsets. Could I see them going, screw it, let's just bring him back? Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
I'm here for those conversations. I'm here for it. I'm not shutting that door. I will not shut that door until absolutely necessary.
Before he went on the ditch in his Harley, by the way, the best part about that entire thing, okay, was when he went to the press conference after, and he's got the neck brace on. And by the way, he's wearing the Sugar Bowl hat. Just to remind everybody, I'm the guy that got you to the Sugar Bowl. Remember that.
That's a really good point, Matt. And
of course it's why he wore it. Yes.
Nobody's looking at his hat.
That's the first thing I did was look at Bob wearing that Sugar Bowl hat, man. That's Connor.
That's the first thing you looked at. You didn't look at the neck brace?
Well, I saw the neck brace, but it's his head. So you're seeing his head, and I see the hat. And the first thing I think, this is like how my mind works. The first thing I think of is, oh my God, that's a great move by him. He's basically telling everybody who's watching this, you may not like the way I act off the field. I may look like a turd, but I'm the guy that got you the Sugar Bowl. Don't ever forget that.
It happened
and
3 months earlier.
I can guarantee you there are fans out there going, he got us to the Sugar Bowl.
If he gets the interim job, which again, we're not rooting for. Hope Sam Pittman has a long future at Arkansas.
Of course not. I feel like this is a Seinfeld episode. Of course not.
But if he does show up, not with the neck brace, but with the Sugar Bowl hat, that will be his loud message to the Arkansas brass, to Hunter Yurachek, to all the chicken people, to the Walmart people, to everybody involved. Hey, buddy, you remember the Sugar Bowl. It was a good time,
Let's put it this way. He's not going to do that, but I will say this. If he does get that job, again, God, I hate even saying that because I'm not going to bury Sammy. I feel like we're killing Sam and Shane Beaner right now. So if that does happen, then that Sugar Bowl hat or some token of the Sugar Bowl will be in that office for the next 5, 6, 7 weeks. So that every time someone of any consequence comes in to talk to him, they're going to be staring at something Sugar Bowl.
I don't blame him. I do the same
thing. I do the same thing, man. Hey, this is what it was like. Remember me?
Oh, gosh. All right. Last one for you, Matt. Is USC going to look like a team that actually wants to be in Vegas against LSU? Or as you reported with Lincoln Riley trying to get out of that matchup, is this going to be a USC team that embodies the mindset of its head coach?
Okay, so first part, I don't blame Lincoln for trying to get out of that. I mean, he's in a rebuilding mode right now, so I don't blame him at all. But the fact that he sat there Big Ten Media Days and denied it is laughable. It's absolutely laughable. You know, we've gone over this many times, and it's believe me, he tried to get out of it. He tried to get his agent Trace Armstrong to talk to Brian Kelly, Trace Armstrong was also Brian Kelly's agent, to get out of that game, and it didn't have Brian saying that's not happening. Forget about it. The whole point is, though, I think this is as big or bigger a game for Brian Kelly, and I'll tell you why. I think Brian, who I believe I had a third on my top 25 coaches, is that right? I think it was third I had Brian at.
I think so. I have the coordinators pulled up. I don't have the head coaches. Let me check that.
All right. So I think Brian's a terrific coach. Okay. But I also think Brian now realizes he blew it last year. I think you only get so many chances to win a national championship. He had an offense in this day and age that could win a national title. He just needed to be like on a scale of 1 to 10, a 5.5 on defense. He needed to have the Auburn defense of 2010, and they would have won the national championship. But they couldn't stop anyone. Had they had any semblance of a defense last year, they would have won the whole thing. So now he's starting over, and I like how he's very confident in SEC Media Days, and he's saying this offense could be better than last year. Garrett Nussmeier is not rushing for 1,100 yards, okay? Garrett Nussmeier is not the threat that Jaden Daniels is. It's not going to be better than last year. Unless Garrett Nussmeier becomes the thrower that Joe Burrow was overnight, and that he throws for 5,000 yards and 60 touchdowns like Joe Burrow did. Then I would say, okay, then it's better. But that's not going to happen. I think he realizes that he probably missed out on a big, big opportunity to win a national championship last year. And he can't start the season with a loss to USC, a marquee team in a big game, a neutral site game. And this is the new SEC, the new 16-team league. He has to win that game right out of the gate to show not only we're still here, we're still a legit national title contender, and we don't care about Texas and Oklahoma. Bring it on, man. But you lose that game, then all of a sudden it's, uh-oh. You know how we are in the media, Connor. We're prisoners of the moment. So you lose that game, then all of a sudden it's, is LSU part of that future of the SEC now with Texas and Oklahoma? And of course, that'll switch by week 3 or 4, but until then,
Yeah, you can see those Sunday night headlines.
Of course.
They're right.
Yes.
That's the irony. And by the way, you had Brian Kelly at 3. You were correct. The irony is that Brian Kelly is the one that should have looked at the schedule and been like, wait a minute, a Sunday night game? Let me get out of that. Why am I playing another Sunday night game for everybody to just mock me after I potentially lose? This is a terrible idea. He's the one that probably should have been getting out ahead of it. I realize we'll play anybody, anywhere, anytime.
He loves those games. He's like Nick, same thing. He loves those games. Like the FSU game on Labor Day night. What was that, like 3 or 4 years ago? When they won on the 2-point conversion.
Oh, the Mackenzie Milton one when he was at Notre Dame. Yeah, because I was going to say, like we've had, last year, obviously that game on that game being played on a Sunday night was, made for everyone to just lock in on how bad LSU's defense was, and it was something that hung over him the entire season.
Horrendous, and quite frankly, it hasn't been good the last couple of years. It was better. It was better in 22 because in 23 just. Wow. Just not good in any way, shape, or form.
Number 3 defensive coordinator in college football, according to Matt Hayes, a certain Blake Baker, should be in position to turn that around, one would think. But again, wait till that Sunday night in Vegas, and then we'll come up with sweeping generalizations and all the takes about LSU this year. That's the way it works. Matt.
It works, man.
You're the best. Success and nothing less at your future national job covering college football across the country.
All right, brother. Thanks, Connor.